The story begins with a small boy named Malik Johnson, a quiet kid with big round glasses that always seemed to slide down his nose. While most children his age complained about math homework or counted down the minutes until recess, Malik was different. For him, numbers weren't just scribbles on a page, they were alive. They danced in his mind like fireflies, forming patterns and puzzles that only he could see. At just 10 years old, Malik was already solving math problems meant for high school students. His teachers would sometimes pause, watching in amazement as he worked through equations faster than they could write them on the board. But Malik didn't do it to show off. He did it because numbers made sense to him in a way people sometimes didn't. While other kids played video games, he would lose himself in math books, his fingers tracing over formulas like they were secret codes waiting to be cracked. Malik's mother, Ms. Johnson, worked long hours as a janitor at a big company called Vertex Technologies. The building was huge, with shiny glass walls and floors so clean you could see a reflection. Every day after school, Malik would wait for her in the employee break room, sitting at a small table with his notebook open, filling the margins with numbers. The grown-ups who passed by barely noticed him, just another kid quietly doing homework while his mom mopped floors and emptied trash cans. But Malik didn't mind being invisible. In fact, he liked it. It gave him time to think. While he sat there, he would listen to the engineers and programmers talking about their work, their voices full of excitement as they discussed problems and solutions. Sometimes, he would even scribble down his own ideas on napkins, folding them neatly and tucking them into his pocket like little treasures. No one knew it yet, but inside Malik's mind, something extraordinary was growing. A genius that would one day change everything. And soon, the world would see it too. Little did Malik know, his quiet afternoons in that break room were about to become anything but ordinary. Because sometimes, the most amazing things begin in the most ordinary places. And Malik Johnson's story was just getting started. Deep inside the towering glass building of Vertex Technologies, something was very wrong. The company's most important project, a brilliant new computer program that could predict the stock market with incredible accuracy, had hit a wall. Not a physical wall made of bricks, but a math problem so complicated that even the smartest people in the company couldn't solve it. For weeks, the top engineers and mathematicians had been working day and night. The walls of their conference rooms were covered with white boards full of scribbled equations that looked like secret messages from another planet. Coffee cups piled up on every desk because the scientists were working so hard they kept forgetting to clean them. The air smelled like stress and stale sandwiches as people argued about different ways to approach the problem. Mr. Reeves, the serious-looking CEO who usually wore expensive suits and never seemed to smile, was getting desperate. Every day the problem remained unsolved meant the company was losing money, lots of money. Investors were getting impatient. The newspapers were starting to ask questions. Something had to be done. One gloomy Tuesday morning, Mr. Reeves made a big announcement that echoed through the entire building. "Listen up, everyone," he said, his voice tense. "Whoever solves this equation gets a $100,000 bonus. No questions asked." The office exploded with excitement. Suddenly, everyone from the junior programmers to the head scientists was trying to crack the code. People worked through lunch. Some even slept at their desks. But no matter how hard they tried, the answer kept slipping away like a bar of soap in the shower. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the building, young Malik Johnson sat at his usual table in the break room. He could feel the tension in the air, though he didn't quite understand what all the fuss was about. As he munched on his peanut butter sandwich, he overheard two engineers talking about the impossible problem. Their voices were frustrated, but the numbers they mentioned made Malik's ears perk up. Without realizing it, Malik started solving the problem in his head. The numbers danced before his eyes, arranging themselves into neat patterns that suddenly made perfect sense. To everyone else it was an impossible puzzle, but to Malik it was like a simple math problem he might find in one of his books. Little did anyone know, the solution to Vertex Technologies' biggest crisis wasn't in some fancy lab or expensive computer. It was sitting right there in the break room, in the mind of a 10-year-old boy who just happened to love numbers more than anything else in the world. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows of Vertex Technologies' break room, casting long shadows across the floor where Malik sat waiting for his mother. The hum of the refrigerator and the distant tapping of computer keyboards filled the air as Malik absent-mindedly worked through a particularly interesting algebra problem in his notebook. His pencil moved in smooth, confident strokes, numbers flowing onto the page as naturally as breathing. At a nearby table, two engineers were having a heated discussion. Malik's ears perked up when he heard the frustration in their voices. "I'm telling you, we've tried every permutation of this algorithm," said the first engineer, running his hands through his already messy hair. "The solution just doesn't exist." The second engineer shook his head, pointing angrily at his laptop screen. "It has to exist. The entire predictive model falls apart without solving this equation. Reeves is going to shut down the whole project if we don't figure this out by Friday." Malik's curiosity got the better of him. He craned his neck slightly, trying to see the equation on the engineer's screen. When the numbers came into focus, something remarkable happened inside Malik's brain. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. Suddenly, all the pieces fell into place with perfect clarity. The equation that had stumped dozens of brilliant adults for weeks suddenly made complete sense to the 10-year-old. Without thinking, Malik stood up from his chair. His notebook fell to the floor with a soft thump, but he barely noticed. His feet carried him toward the large conference room where he knew the main whiteboard was kept. The marker tray was nearly empty, but he found one that still worked, a blue one with a slightly frayed tip. The conference room was empty except for a few exhausted-looking scientists slumped in chairs, staring blankly at the massive whiteboard covered in failed attempts. They barely glanced up when the small boy walked in, assuming he was someone's kid who had gotten lost. Then Malik started writing. His small hand moved with surprising speed, the marker squeaking against the whiteboard as numbers and symbols appeared in a flawless stream. The tired scientists sat up straighter, their eyes widening as they watched. One by one, people began gathering at the doorway, drawn by the unusual sight of a child solving what they all knew to be an impossible problem. The room grew so quiet you could hear the marker's faint squeaks. Malik worked without hesitation, each step of the solution flowing perfectly into the next. His brow furrowed slightly in concentration, but there was no doubt in his movements. 30 seconds after he started, Malik stepped back and capped the marker with a decisive click. He tilted his head slightly, examining his work, then turned to face the stunned adults. "Done," he said simply, as if he'd just finished a routine homework assignment rather than solving a $1,000,000 equation. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the head mathematician, Dr. Chun, slowly approached the board. His eyes darted back and forth as he traced Malik's solution. His mouth fell open slightly, then he turned to the room with an expression of pure astonishment. It's correct," he breathed. "Every single step is perfect." The silence shattered as the room erupted into noise-excited shouts, disbelieving laughter, and a dozen voices all asking the same question at once. "Who is this kid?" Malik barely heard the commotion. He was already thinking about the next math problem he wanted to tackle, completely unaware that his life was about to change forever in ways he couldn't possibly imagine. The conference room buzzed with an electric energy as more and more employees crowded in to see the miracle on the whiteboard. Whispers bounced off the walls like ping-pong balls. "A kid solve it. That's impossible. Who is he?" The head mathematician, Dr. Chun, kept double-checking the solution, running his finger along each line as if expecting to find a mistake that wasn't there. Then the crowd suddenly parted like the Red Sea as Mr. Daniel Reeves, the imposing CEO of Vertex Technologies, strode into the room. His expensive leather shoes clicked sharply against the tile floor. "What's all this commotion about?" he demanded, his deep voice cutting through the chatter. When his eyes landed on the small boy standing proudly beside the solved equation, his stern expression faltered. "This child wrote this?" Mr. Reeves asked slowly, his eyebrows climbing toward his hairline. Dr. Chen nodded vigorously. "Every step is mathematically flawless, sir. He solved in 30 seconds what our best minds couldn't crack in 6 weeks." Mr. Reeves knelt down carefully, his expensive suit pants wrinkling against the floor, until he was eye level with Malik. Up close, the CEO noticed things: the boy's slightly too big glasses, his worn but clean sneakers, the quiet confidence in his posture. "Who are you?" Mr. Reeves asked, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Malik met his gaze without flinching. "I'm Malik Johnson. My mom cleans offices here on the 3rd floor." A hush fell over the room, so complete you could hear the hum of the overhead lights. The CEO of a billion-dollar company stared at the janitor's son who had just saved his flagship project. Mr. Reeves's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like a fish out of water. Finally, he reached out and put a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you're not just smart. You're a once-in-a-generation genius." Then, to everyone's astonishment, the famously stern CEO did something no employee had ever witnessed. He smiled. A real, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Come with me, Malik. I think we need to have a very important talk." As Malik followed Mr. Reeves toward the executive offices, he glanced back at the crowd of stunned adults. For the first time, people weren't looking past him or through him. They were looking at him with something Malik had never seen directed his way before: respect. The next morning, Malik found himself riding the elevator up to the very top floor of Vertex Technologies, where the air smelled like leather and expensive coffee. His sneakers squeaked against the marble floors as a nervous assistant led him to a pair of massive wooden doors with "Daniel Reeves, CEO," engraved on a golden plaque. Inside, the office looked like something from a movie: floor-to-ceiling windows showing the entire city below, shelves filled with shiny awards, and a desk so big Malik wondered if it could fit his whole bedroom. Mr. Reeves stood up from his chair and gestured to 2 plush armchairs by the window. "Malik," he began, pouring them both glasses of sparkling apple juice in fancy glasses, "what you did yesterday, it was extraordinary." He slid a thick folder across the table. "I've had my team working all night to put this together for you." Inside were papers offering a $100,000 check with Malik's name on it, guaranteed scholarships to any school up through college, a future job at Vertex with a 6-figure salary. The numbers made Malik's head spin. This was more money than his mom made in 5 years of cleaning offices. He imagined her face when he told her she could quit her job tomorrow. But as Malik stared at the papers, something didn't feel right. He thought about all the inventions he'd sketched in his notebooks: the solar-powered calculator, the math-based video game, the AI tutor for kids who struggled with numbers. If he took this deal, would he ever get to build those? Mr. Reeves must have seen the hesitation. "What's wrong, son? Isn't this what you wanted?" Malik took a deep breath. "Thank you, sir. It's amazing. But," he pointed out the window at the city below, "what if I want to start my own company someday? What if I want to build things nobody's ever imagined before?" The room went so quiet Malik could hear the ice melting in their glasses. Then something unexpected happened. Mr. Reeves threw back his head and laughed, a deep belly laugh that made his expensive watch jingle. "You know," he said, wiping his eyes, "when I was your age, I turned down a safe job at IBM to start this company in my garage." He reached for a pen. "Tell you what, let's cross out this employment contract and write an investment agreement instead." With a few strokes of his pen, Mr. Reeves changed everything. Now the papers promised seed money for Malik's future ventures, mentorship from Vertex's top engineers, and most importantly, freedom. As they shook hands, Malik realized something important. The most valuable currency wasn't money or promises, but the chance to chase your own dreams. And, thanks to this surprising turn of events, his were just getting started. The world discovered Malik Johnson all at once. By the end of the week, his story was everywhere on television news, in newspapers, even trending online with hashtags like #MathGenius and #JanitorSon. Reporters camped outside Malik's small apartment building, their camera lights shining bright through the windows at all hours. His school principal announced a special assembly in his honor, though Malik would have much preferred quietly eating lunch in the library like usual. But through all the noise and attention, Malik remained exactly who he'd always been: a boy who loved numbers more than fame. The first thing he did with Mr. Reeves's investment was sit down with his mother at their kitchen table, the same table where he'd done homework for years. "Mom," he said, sliding the paperwork toward her, "you don't have to clean offices anymore." When she read the numbers and burst into tears, Malik learned something new: that happiness could make your chest feel warm, like hot chocolate on a winter day. His mother used part of the money to go back to school, finally pursuing the nursing degree she'd always dreamed about. She still woke up early every morning, but now it was to study anatomy instead of mop floors. Malik kept his same old routine: to school, homework, then hours spent tinkering with new math concepts at that same kitchen table. Only now, sometimes engineers from Vertex would video call to discuss his ideas. Meanwhile, something remarkable was happening at Vertex Technologies. Inspired by Malik's story, Mr. Reeves announced the Hidden Genius Initiative. The company began hosting math competitions at community centers, offering internships to students from underfunded schools, and most importantly, judging applicants by their skills rather than their zip codes. Malik watched all this unfold while working on his own secret project blueprints for an educational app that would make math exciting for kids like him. He kept the sketches hidden under his mattress, waiting for the day he'd be ready to build it. The reporters eventually stopped camping outside their apartment. The TV interviews became less frequent. But Malik didn't mind the quiet returning. He knew something the world was just beginning to understand: real change happens slowly, one equation, one opportunity, one open door at a time. And his door, he realized with a quiet smile as he worked late into the night, was only just beginning to creak open. 10 years later, a crowd of thousands gathered in the very same Vertex Technologies building where it had all begun. The glass walls now reflected a much taller, but still recognizably bright-eyed Malik Johnson standing at a podium. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the logo of his company MathSpark, the revolutionary education platform he'd built from his childhood dreams. The audience erupted in applause as Mr. Reeves, now retired but still influential, stepped forward to shake Malik's hand. "I always knew you'd do remarkable things," the former CEO said, his voice thick with pride, "but even I couldn't have imagined this." MathSpark had become what young Malik had always wished for as a boy: a place where numbers came alive for students everywhere. His team had developed AI tutors that adapted to each learner's pace, game-like lessons that made algebra as engaging as video games, and most importantly, scholarships that sought out hidden geniuses in every neighborhood, just like someone had once done for him. As Malik looked out at the crowd, he spotted his mother in the front row, her nursing degree proudly displayed on her office wall back home. Beside her sat several wide-eyed children from Malik's old elementary school, their faces glowing in the light of the demonstration screens. "I didn't build MathSpark just to teach math," Malik explained to the audience, his voice steady but heartfelt. "I built it to help people see potential in numbers, in the world, and most importantly, in themselves." He gestured to a special section of the stage where Vertex's current CEO stood with 3 young interns, one from a rural farming community, another who had learned math while homeless, and a third who reminded Malik strikingly of his younger self. The event ended with Malik announcing a new partnership: MathSpark would be working with Vertex to create opportunities in tech for students from all backgrounds. As cameras flashed and the crowd cheered, Malik allowed himself one quiet moment to remember: the break room where he'd waited for his mother, the whiteboard where he'd first proven himself, and the incredible journey from janitor's son to innovator. Walking off stage, Malik paused to kneel beside a shy-looking boy who was nervously clutching a notebook full of equations. "What are you working on there?" Malik asked gently. As the child's face lit up explaining his ideas, Malik saw the future unfolding not just his own, but for all the quiet geniuses still waiting to be discovered. Some stories end where they began, but Malik's was different. His story had created a circle, one that kept expanding outward, creating new possibilities with every equation solved, every mind inspired, every barrier broken. And as the evening's celebration continued into the night, that circle grew ever wider, shining brightly against the dark sky like the numbers Malik had always loved: infinite, eternal, and full of promise. The end.